Welcome again to the Twins Wrap. Derek Hansen with you, along with the television play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Twins, Dick Bremer, brought to you again by Jefferson Lines. Dick, a nice day off, and probably a day off after a long week of baseball that the Twins needed.
Yeah, it seems like more like the All-Star break than just one day off because of what preceded it. The 17-inning game really put everybody back on their heels a little bit. I thought the Twins, frankly, were fortunate to win a couple of games in Kansas City. It was a 17-inning game one night, then a travel night the next night. And I'll be very curious to see how this team responds to an off day. I think we'll see much more energy than what we saw before the day off. And, the Twins somehow managed through it all to have a losing streak. We'll see if they can build a winning streak now.
Yeah, Kansas City over that 4-game stretch, they've been playing the Twins tough all season long, both at Target Field and down at Kauffman.
Yeah, they've got, I think, developing starting pitching that could serve them well here for the next few years. The Twins have found out about that in the games that have been played this year. Kansas City's biggest weakness, they don't have a deep lineup and they don't have much of a bullpen, and the Twins have kind of exploited that. But, we won't see the Royals for a while, and I think that's just fine. The Royals have pitched the Twins tough, and we'll see what happens here leading up to the All-Star break here in the next couple of weeks.
Of course, they played Cleveland tough last night, too, only to lose 3-2. I said earlier this morning, it's one thing that the Twins are 7.5 games ahead of Cleveland, and we got a little spoiled getting up to 11 at one point a couple of weeks ago. But if you'd have told me when we were sitting at Target Field opening day that, hey, the last week of June, the Twins are 7.5 games ahead of Cleveland, the American League Central, we would have been pretty happy with that. It's all pretty relative, isn't it?
Well, it is, and you have to understand the Twins, I think the perception is that they're fading. They're still playing .600 baseball in June. It's not that the Twins are falling back, although they're not playing at the clip they did in May. They're still playing good baseball in the month of June, but the Indians are charging. And first couple months, the big question for Twins fans was, is this sustainable? And I think the same could be asked for the Indians. They've done really well here the last 3 weeks. They won just about every series, I think. And so you have to ask for them, is it sustainable? This isn't a case where the Twins have lost 8 out of 10 and the Indians have crept up. They've just really been playing good baseball. And if they continue to do that, we're going to have a race in the American League Central. There's nothing the Twins can do about that.
Yeah, and as long as the tough part about having the 2 wild cards, too, is that Cleveland's going to be in the wild card race. So in the time being, there's no doubt they'll keep on chasing the Twins. They are not going to go away. They're a pesky little club.
Well, if you underestimate a Terry Francona club, then you do so at your own peril. I think the Twins expected the Indians to survive the injuries and get things together. Typically, the Indians have been a much better second-half club than first-half club, and that will probably be the case again this year. So we'll see what happens here. It's 7.5 games now. The lead is for the Twins, and if it is that going into the All-Star break, that's fine. If it continues to diminish a little bit, then, we're going to have to buckle up for what could be a really fun second half.
I think it bears repeating, Dick, and we brought up for the past couple of weeks, and certainly last week when we didn't know he was going to be on the injured list, but it can't be a coincidence that 9th guy in the lineup, who's really had a lot of pop in his bat, being gone for a week with Byron Buxton, and this a little bit of not the power outage, I should say, is maybe too strong of a term, but you know what I'm getting at, that exploding offense. I don't think that can be a coincidence with that Byron Buxton is out and the Twins are searching for runs at key times.
Yeah, the hope is that he'll be activated in time for tonight's game. And where I really noticed it, I'm a big Jake Cave guy. I think Jake Cave belongs on a major league roster. But when they called him up, he really struggled. He took over the 9th spot, and he was, just a spot or two below Miguel Sano, who was striking out a lot. And that really hurt the Twins lineup a lot. The strength of this team was the depth, the balance it had 1 through 9. What we saw in Kansas City is if you've got a couple of guys who are struggling, regardless of who their names are, then the lineup isn't as good, So the hope is Byron will get back tonight, and then it's a little bit easier to hide one guy who's struggling, whether that's Sano or somebody else, because you've got, some guys hitting behind him that can get some things generated and some run-scoring innings started.
Miguel Sano is not the first power hitter with high risk and high reward, but the right now the reward is not as much as it should be compared to his strikeouts.
Well, we saw what he can do when he makes contact with the ball. I think the most alarming thing, for me at least, from Sano is he's actually done a nice job not chasing pitches. I mean, he's always been a guy that with 2 strikes, you spin the ball up there and it's going to break a foot outside and he's going to get called out on a check swing.
Right.
He's not doing that. He's missing 93 mile per hour fastballs that are inside the strike zone. And I'm not sure what the issue is, but those are pitches that he typically mashes. And so he got a couple big hits in the Kansas City series. And the thing with, hitters like Sano, at least it's been my experience, if you're going to get anything out of them at all, they've got to play. And you've got to just live through the rough spots and the high volume of strikeouts, because if there's any hope for a hitter like that, it's in running them out there day after day, night after night, and live through the 0 for 4s with 3 strikeouts in the hopes that through better pitch recognition, better approach at the plate, eventually they'll get things turned around.
That is the tough thing, is that you can't, learn to catch up with that 93 mile an hour fastball if you don't see it from a live arm, right? That is the tough thing with not only Rocco Baldelli, with managers over the years.
Yeah, you've got to get these guys out there, and for years we've heard about Sano and Buxton. Well, they're 2 entirely different players. You could probably argue the same thing for Byron, that he needs to get out there and get consecutive at bats, and maybe it's true for every hitter. You need to understand that it's a long season, and you're better off taking the longer view of things. We all believe Miguel Sano's better than a 220 hitter or whatever he's hitting. But let's imagine if he plays every day, what the numbers might look like by the end of September, rather than, he's striking out 3-4 times every game, and missing pitches he should cream, and you've got to take the longer view of things, I think, if you're in charge of putting the lineup together and in getting people in and out of the lineup.
This is the Twins Wrap. Derek Hansen, along with the television voice of the Minnesota Twins, Dick Bremer, brought to you by Jefferson Lines, your #1 bus experience for over 100 years, serving North Dakota and cities through the Midwest. Part 2 is coming up right after the CBS and KFGO news, right around 6:15. I'm going to ask Dick about a player that's been missing the past couple of days, and we probably don't really talk about him as far as being a key offseason pickup as much as we should. It's part 2 of the Twins Wrap with Dick Bremer, brought to you by Jefferson Lines, your #1 bus experience for over 100 years, serving North Dakota and cities through the Midwest. Dick, I mentioned this in the tease as we went to part 2 here, the fact that maybe a guy that we don't talk about enough because he's been such a key part for this team is Jonathan Schoop, and he's been missing for the past couple of days, and his offensive power, I think, has maybe been lacking. We talk so much about Byron Buxton as far as him being out, and that can't be a coincidence that they have a little bit of a power outage there. But Jonathan Schoop, it certainly doesn't help to have him out of this lineup as well.
The Twins won 2 of 4 in Kansas City, and they were probably as banged up as they've been at any point this season, with Buxton on the injured list, Marwin Gonzalez on the injured list. Schoop was bothered by a little bit of a turned ankle, although we expect to see him back on the lineup tonight. So yeah, you're looking at guys who have been integral parts of this Twins lineup all year long, and they were pretty much unavailable for the Kansas City series. Now, Schoop being on the bench allowed Luis Arraez to even open up more eyes about what type of player he is and what the future holds for him. The Twins have some difficult decisions to make regarding Luis Arraez, because he looks like he belongs in the big leagues, and that isn't to suggest for a moment that he's maybe even going to survive the day here. He may get sent down, but we're excited about where the Twins are now, but they've got some prospects down in the minor leagues that are going to make the long-term future for this team very bright as well.
Well, it does make it interesting with the ongoing talks, and we got, a month left here with the trade deadline, which is a hard trade deadline this year with no waiver wires. And so I've always said you're probably not going to hear a lot of notable names, but when it gets down to it, if it really becomes a heck of a race in the American League Central, maybe that is the case where some of the guys we didn't think that would, they've gotten a little cup of coffee here in the major leagues might get sent out, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, I think that the targeted area for the front office is probably the bullpen. Everybody wants more pitching, and it's understandable because you can never have enough of it. But the rotation right now has been among the best in baseball. So fans who want Madison Bumgarner or Marcus Stroman, that's fine. They would improve the ball club. But who would you take out of the rotation right now, and would they, whoever it is, be of any value in the bullpen? And you'd be hard-pressed to come up with somebody who, if they were taken out of the rotation, whether it would be Pineda or Gibson, that they would provide what the Twins probably need more than anything else, which is reliable relief help. So I think in terms of incoming players, Twins fans should look more at the relievers who are on the market. It's intriguing, I think, that they signed Cody Allen to a minor league deal after he got released by the Angels. You've got an October-tested pitcher who, for whatever reason, got off to a terrible start with the Angels. If the Twins can fix him a little bit, we might see him in the Twins bullpen sooner rather than later. Trevor Rosenthal was released by the Nationals, another playoff-proven late-inning guy that might find his way in the Twins organization, too. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, how active the Twins are before the July trading deadline.
This Cody Allen thing, I think, is interesting because obviously it's not like the Angels were just loaded with pitching both in the starting rotation and the bullpen. But you got to think with Derek Falvey's background with the Cleveland Indians, he's feeling like they have something. Maybe Wes Johnson can fix that a little bit.
Well, that's part of the hope and the plan. The Angels ended up eating the balance of Allen's $8 million contract. And, he's going to get paid his $8 million. It's just a question of how much of it is paid for by the Twins. If the Twins call him up, say at the All-Star break, well, then they're getting him for the prorated minimum. It's certainly worth a look to see whether Allen's, and they can analyze all this stuff now. I think he's going to go to Pensacola, and they'll put all the technology on him, the TrackMan, and evaluate his spin rate on his fastball and his curveball, and they'll assess where he is in relation to where he was a couple years ago when he was one of the best closers in the game. And if the fundamentals are there, it's going to be a very shrewd pickup for the Twins. And I'd be surprised, frankly, if he isn't part of the bullpen mix here pretty soon.
Yeah, it would be amazing if they could get him and not have to give up anything for him. I mean, talk about a diamond in a rough, although it may not even be in the rough. I mean, he was out there.
You hear the term low risk. This is no risk.
Yeah.
They've got nothing to lose. They've got nothing but upside with this guy who, was, as I said, among the best relievers in the game. Now, if, the velocity is down, and I think we saw that last year that, he was down in the low 90s. Well, then that's a different animal. But I think when we saw him out in Anaheim when we were out there, I think we had him clocked at 94. Well, that's plenty good with a guy who, has a good breaking ball to go with it. And so we'll see. It's just going to be fascinating to watch. The Twins are still in a very enviable position here with a lot of depth in the organization beyond the 25-man roster, beyond the 40-man roster. And there are going to be a lot of, really good baseball players flooding the market here before the end of July.
My final thing for you, Dick, is, and you and Jack were kind of mentioned over the weekend, the one thing with the day off yesterday, as we mentioned before, I think could help is there were some really things that we weren't seeing all year long defensively. And I think those physical, as far as physical fatigue can make a little bit of mental fatigue too. And I think that's what we saw with some very uncharacteristic errors. Would you agree with that?
Hitting is going to come and go. We know that it's going to come and go individually. The lineup will go through some periods of struggle. We haven't really seen that this year, but it'll come. But there isn't anything that can really drop a team's morale in the clubhouse and giving games away with poor defense. And we did see some of that in the last week and a half or so. And yet the Twins found a way to win at least half their game. So we'll see if all that gets cleaned up. Again, it was just one off day, but I really think the Twins needed it, and we'll hope they'll come up with a really good effort in this quick series we have here with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Should be a good one tonight. Blake Snell, Cy Young Award winner against Kyle Gibson, who's 7-4 in the season. Didn't have his greatest outing the last time out, but he always seems to bounce back pretty well.
Well, and Blake Snell had one of the worst outings any pitcher could ever have. He lasted 1/3 of an inning, gave up 6 earned runs to the Yankees, so he'll look to bounce back tonight. And, it should be fun. I expect we'll have a good crowd on hand at Target Field, a beautiful summer night, so it should be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it. Enjoy your time out there tonight.
Thanks, Eric.
Again, that's Dick Bremer with the Twins Wrap, brought to you by Jefferson Lines, your #1 bus experience for over 100 years, serving North Dakota and cities through the Midwest. That wraps up Couch Potato Radio. Always fun talking with Dick Bremer on the mighty 790 KFGO.